And welcome again to Theories of Knowledge. I'm Professor Borrowdale, and we're talking more about Hume today. I'm in the rented private residence here in Chile still, and nice and quiet tonight. Maybe I'll see if when I'm out tomorrow, if I can take a little video, be able to share a few stills. I've been taking quite a few pictures. But let's get down to business here. I think I fixed the audio problem. So I believe what was going on is I had my old headset, and one of the cable going through to the microphone is frayed. So this is a brand new headset. Hopefully you can hear me a little better this time. I think last time it was just the camera's inbuilt microphone. So last time we were talking about Hume and his views on cause and effect, and his views on the mind, and his classification of ideas. And maybe just to review those briefly. So Hume's classification of ideas, he says, he uses the term perception to cover any mental thing. So perception is a general category of anything, any mental phenomena. And I won't say anything that's in your mind because you don't have a mind, but it's any mental phenomena. And then, and it's a little confusing because we tend to think about perception as being part of the five senses and also the sort of physical picture along with the psychological picture. And Hume just means any mental phenomena, that's perception. And then there's two kinds of perceptions. There are the lively, vivid ones that force themselves on you, and then there are the faint copies of those which are used in thinking. And so the former he calls impressions, sometimes sense impressions, but usually just impressions. And those are the lively, vivid ones that force themselves on you. And then there are the ideas, which are faint copies of impressions used in thinking. And they're kind of vague and hazy, and they're actually under your control. So you can decide what you want to do with them, which ones you want to have. The impressions don't give you that choice. Now, again, most people would say, well, when you're having an impression, what's happening is you're in touch with the external world through your perceptual equipment, the five senses, and that's giving you sensations. Hume says you're not justified in believing that, and says that if you look at the phenomena, the sort of quality of the experience, all you can say is they're the lively, vivid ones. And then the impressions are just faint copies of the ideas are just faint copies of the impressions. So, and again, most people would say, well, when you're using your imagination, you're having a memory. That's when you're taking a kind of a mental copy of an actual experience of the external world and manipulating it, bringing it to awareness. But really, those aren't that's not necessarily what you're doing. You're copying an impression. So Hume would say we know where ideas come from. They come from impressions, but we don't know where impressions come from. Now remember, Locke says impressions come from the external world, even though he doesn't use the term impressions. Locke still has the concept and says impressions come from an external world of matter. Berkeley says they come directly from God, and Hume says we don't know where they come from. And all we know is that ideas are copies of the impressions, and where the impressions come from, we can't say. So Hume, again, the most skeptical of the empiricists, and also the most empiricist of the empiricists, or the most extreme of the empiricists. So, and we talked about that a bit, and then we talked about Hume's views on cause and effect, which is that he tries to analyze the concept of cause and effect and says there's basically three components to it. You have priority in time. Uh, Objects have to touch, or contiguity is the word he uses. That means contiguous means without a gap, so the objects have to touch. And the third thing is necessary connection. This is part of the concept of cause and effect. Hume doesn't think there is such a thing, but he's talking about like what people have in mind when they believe in cause and effect. And so what Hume says is we can empirically verify only the first two of the components of cause and effect, all of which are necessary for the concept of cause and effect to make sense. So you can observe one thing happens before another thing happens. You can observe that objects are touching, but you can't observe necessity. And so what does he say? Well, the necessity is all in your mind, which doesn't exist, but that's another story, right? But the necessity isn't in the thing you're observing. The necessity is in you. And he says this necessary connection between cause and effect is a kind of a psychological habit. We're like Pavlov's dog, salivating, waiting for the effect to happen from its usual cause. So you see a baseball heading towards a glass window, and you cringe and wait for the telltale sound of shattering and glass falling and so on. And so that's something you not only sort of predict, but you expect it to happen, and you think it's not possible for it not to happen. And Hume again challenges this and says, well, if you can imagine a cause without its usual effect, that shows it's not necessary, because necessity means logical necessity. And so to say something's necessary is to say it's impossible for it to be otherwise. But if it's impossible for it to be otherwise, you shouldn't be able to imagine it being otherwise. So a triangle has three sides. You can't imagine or picture in your mind a four-sided triangle. Therefore, a triangle has three sides is a necessary truth. Same thing with 2 and 2 is 4, or a bachelor's and unmarried male. Those are all necessary truths. They're truths which couldn't be otherwise. But you can imagine all kinds of things with cause and effect. You can imagine people flying through the air without means of support. You can watch the Roadrunner cartoons and watch Wile E. Coyote go off a cliff and sort of stand there for a while without realizing that he's off a cliff, and then 5 seconds later look down at the ground and then plummet to his doom. So you can imagine things like that. You can tell stories about things like that. There's lots of fantasy and science fiction which goes beyond laws of physics, contradicts the laws of physics. So they're not really laws. They're just really just a generalization about what's happened in the past. And Hume says necessity says that patterns of the past have to continue in the future, and you're not justified in believing that. So he says this is no more certain the sun will rise tomorrow than that it won't. And so Hume again is very skeptical in his approach, and he has this another part of this kind of predicting the future is the problem of induction. And the problem of induction is that you can sort of look at instances one after the other, and then after a while you say, well, this is kind of the way it is. This is the way it has to happen. The problem is that you might see a swan and it's white. You see another swan and it's white. And you see swan after swan after swan, and they're white, 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 white. And you think, well, all swans are white. That seems like it's a necessary truth. It's an essential fact about swans that they're white. But then maybe you go to Australia and you see a black swan. There actually are black swans in Australia. So, and interestingly, all swans are white used to be used as an example of a necessary truth. And now it turns out all swans aren't white. So that's the problem of induction. And the same thing with, you see cause, effect, cause, effect, cause, effect. and you see the cause and you think, okay, the effect's right around the corner. But it could be otherwise, and there's no logical reason why it has to be that way. So that's that's what's going on with the Hume's view on cause and effect. I think I've probably got a tall video here. I'm holding my video camera lengthwise, and I think I'm going to stop this now and maybe try another video and hold it sideways and see if I get a better result. This is sort of in selfie mode, and hopefully I can fix this in post.